Welcome to This Week in the World of Wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Monday Night Raw review. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this Raw. It seemed to have a great pace, which is really rare to say for a 3-hour program. It seemed packed with content. We got more TLC build, some character progression. It seemed like this show had a little bit of everything, and I'm not complaining one bit. Ashton, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, I took a nap this afternoon, and I ended up waking up at like 8:30, so I did miss a first little bit of Raw. But apparently I showed up right after the opening segment ended, and they review the opening segment so many times throughout the show that apparently I didn't really even miss that much. And I gotta say, I actually didn't mind this Raw. I mean, I actually see, normally Reddit is a very positive place. Normally they really point out the good stuff that happens in Raw. Like, it'll be one of those things where Raw will go off the air and we'll have the post-Raw thread and people will be talking about it, but then like, over the course of the following 48 or so hours, people will just start posting random GIFs from Raw and be like, "Oh, this was awesome from Raw," and you might have missed it, but there was this one really cool subtle thing that happened on Raw, and like that kind of stuff. But it just seems like everyone is crapping all over this show, and I don't get it because I actually enjoyed it.
I don't get it either. I think this is one of those few occasions where the public opinion doesn't really coincide with our own personal opinions. But with that said, let's get right into the first segment, Heat of the Night. And the hilarious irony here is, I just said in the opening that I didn't have a single complaint with this show, but that's a lie, because I have something that I'm waffling on whether I want to make it a full-blown Heat of the Night or a nitpick, so the best way to determine that is to have at it. Ashton, I gotta be honest with you, bro, I really didn't like that Bray Wyatt conveyed emotion at the hands of Dean Ambrose tonight.
Do you mean when Ambrose was breaking his chair?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't a fan of that, and you know what, like, again, I'm very conflicted, because I really did try and see both sides, but to me, I just think, here is a guy that proclaims himself to be a god, and you and I have both agreed we like Bray Wyatt better when he stayed away from that kind of language, but even, that notwithstanding, here is a guy that seems to be, an enigma, like an entity kind of like shrouded in darkness, you really can't decipher much about him. Seems to be provocative to the most active parts of the imagination, whose purpose is to elicit the darkest fears and the most hidden things in his fellow human beings. And yet, rather than getting to Dean Ambrose, which I felt would have made more sense character-wise in this story, Dean Ambrose gets to Bray Wyatt, and I feel like it makes him look too human, which would be fine whether he compared himself to a god or not. I just have a problem that, it happened in this feud. I'm just not really feeling very comfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really have a problem with it just because I had such low expectations going into this feud. I can totally see where you're coming from, and if you look at this from a did they protect the Bray Wyatt character standpoint, the answer is a pretty weak no. And I say weak no because it's not like a very firm, like absolutely not, no is the worst thing ever. It's just like a little I guess not. But on the other hand, if you look at what this did for the Dean Ambrose character, I think it offsets, because if the goal is to try and come out of a segment with more momentum than you went into it with, I think they succeeded here, if for no other reason because Ambrose looked like a freaking rock star here.
And I agree with you there. I do agree with that. You know what I think my main contention is, Ashley? Because believe it or not, I think WWE could have gotten away with this, and it would have been fine to humanize Bray Wyatt. I just think the manner in which they did it was the chair, I think. Like, if Dean Ambrose did something maybe more personal, maybe slandered Abigail, or something like that, or did something that would seem to really strike a chord and really hit close to home for Bray, I'd understand. And I guess maybe that's what the rocking chair kind of represents. Maybe Bray's follow-up promo about this, because I think he will address it, will make me be like, oh, that was clever. But in the moment, I'm just thinking it was an inanimate object, And I just really didn't see the connection. So maybe that's more on me. So I think I'm just going to leave it at a nitpick, but I just want to put that out there.
Right, and that's perfectly understandable. All right, well, hey, we might as well, elephant in the room situation, we might as well, because if we do this chronologically, we could talk about SmackDown, but something happened a day before SmackDown that kind of shook up the wrestling world as a whole.
Yeah, let's I guess touch on it very quickly. CM Punk did an interview on Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast. I recommend everybody go and check that out. It was an excellent listen. So much so I did it twice just to make sure I caught everything.
I think I've actually listened to it 3 times, so I might have one up there, yeah.
Well, I mean, hell, all the better of a selling point. Ash, I mean, you and I have said that I don't think we're going to have much to say anyway because so much commentary has already been put out there, the majority of which I think captures our voices pretty well. But I'll let people know right now, I was so angry about the revelations made by CM Punk that I could readily believe, given the history of this business with its ups and downs, that I canceled my network subscription. The day after, I was just mulling it over. It got me thinking about past incidents, and I said, you know what, something's not adding up here. I don't feel comfortable giving my money, and I went and I canceled it. So that's how much CM Punk moved me, and that's really all I want to offer, because I think that says it all, really. So what did you think about it?
Right, I mean, the only reason that I haven't canceled my network subscription is because I am sharing the network with somebody else, and I'm not paying for it because of that for the next 3 months, because I did pay for it for the last 3 months. So if I was responsible for paying for the network for the next month or however long, I would probably have canceled it as well, but I'm basically getting it for free for the next 3 months because I kind of put in my time. So I'm just going to cancel it after those 3 months are over. But, yeah, I don't know. I think that pretty much everything that needs to be said about the CM Punk situation probably already has been said by other people. If we're the only people that you listen to for wrestling recaps, then I definitely appreciate it. But again, I really, you probably have seen somewhere else, somebody else saying something. And really all that we have to say is that, or at least all I have to say, John, I don't want to speak for you. All I have to say is that, in my opinion, the doctor who was responsible for mistreating CM Punk, I'm pretty sure it was Amon, but I don't remember him specifically saying that in the interview, so I could be wrong, should be out on his ass. He does not deserve a job. He should probably have his license taken away if that's the kind of malpractice that he's been using on people. The really ridiculous thing is, I don't know if you guys have been paying much attention, but I don't know if it was at Survivor Series, but relatively recently, Kane has also been spotted with a lump on his back, and people are now kind of asking, like, what is this also a staph infection, or is this something different? Or is the doctor just going to say, oh, it's just a fatty deposit, and start giving him Z-Packs?
Z-Packs, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it seems like it's a problem, and from what I understand, and I actually, pretty much ever since the Punk interview, I've been listening a lot more intently to Dave Meltzer's podcast, Wrestling Observer Online, and it's honestly, Meltzer's only actually on the show like 1 day a week, but everything else is just Brian Alvarez all the time. And he has said, Meltzer has said that apparently while Triple H is absolutely livid over this situation, Vince isn't taking it nearly as bad as you would expect, although of course he is relatively pissed off about it. But most of the locker room are actually happy about it. They're relatively in support of what CM Punk said. They're happy that somebody had the guts to come out and say it because they've been thinking it, and that kind of situation. So to me, the fact that it's a kind of an atmosphere where guys are afraid to speak up, it just it seems like nothing good is coming out of this for WWE.
I mean, to me, that's the biggest concern, Ash. And look, you could talk about everything else that Punk said. I should have main evented WrestleMania. 2011 was my year. I didn't want to do a program with that guy. But you know what? That really, to me, is neither here nor there. That's not to say anything against Punk. It's just you hear that from a lot of different performers. So you can take that what you will. to me, the health concerns, how he was performing, and especially the staph infection, I think should be the focal point of really any serious discussion about this, because this is nothing to laugh at. I think, the things regarding the career, we know it's a political business, and there's really not much you can do about that. But I completely agree with you. Dr. Aman, who I do believe that's who the doctor was, should absolutely lose his license. I mean, to not even accept the request of, hey, doc, cut this out of me, and then you wait and see that it's hurting purple. And even then, remember that Punk said, cut this out of me right now. It hurts. I need help. Help me. For the love of God, help me. And he said no. Like, even after Punk got his concussion and he came to the back from the Rumble, still wouldn't do it. I mean, the negligence is so gross. It's repulsive. I was very angered by it. And that's really, again, all I can offer up, because everything else, again, you're going to hear from the Hulk Hogans and anybody who's ever done a sit-down interview about their career and about the business. But those health concerns are what's very jarring to me.
Right. To me, the number one thing that was jarring was the health concerns, but I think that a close number two was so many things that got taken away from Punk and given to other people. Whether it was, escorting an MMA fighter to the octagon when he said to Vince that he wanted to walk Chael Sonnen to the octagon, and Vince straight up said no, and then Triple H is walking Mayweather to the ring a couple weeks later. Or like Punk said that he wanted to wear fight shorts to wrestle, and Vince said no, and then next thing you know, Brock Lesnar shows up and he's doing it. And the movie, of course, Punk knew the movie was going to suck, but he decided that he wanted to do it because he would get weekends off, I believe it was, because he would be shooting the movie. And Triple H, next thing you know, ends up giving the spot to Orton. It's one of those things where you have to wonder, how often does this happen, where guys come up with ideas, guys have things that could help them to get over. I think Zack Ryder would be another great example. And the WWE says no to them and then gives it to somebody else who they have an agenda to get over.
Either gives it to somebody else, or in the case of Zack Ryder, since you mentioned him, tries to take it over for themselves because they wanted the ownership rights, I guess, to his YouTube show. Yeah. And they wanted to be the platform. It's a very stifling environment, I think, creatively.
And Punk even said that multiple times.
Right. It's like whether you're undercard, or in Punk's case, like, I feel like it would almost be insulting around that time to say he's undercard, but I guess undercard in the eyes of those who matter, because clearly he didn't have the same pull or the same clout.
I mean, I hate to kind of muddle kayfabe with shoot, but it really just seems like the WWE, and namely Triple H, just always saw him as, and again, muddling kayfabe, a B-plus player. Like, he just never thought that he was on that same level as The Rock, Brock, Cena, Taker, himself, of course, those guys. And even if he did, he would never admit to it.
I think, to me, one last big comment I want to make, because it really wasn't anything pertinent that he said. It just really resonated with me. When he said that it had just gotten to the point where he hated wrestling, he lost his passion. But the cap off, and I really felt for him here, was when he said, hey, I failed because my one goal was to main event WrestleMania, and I didn't.
And you know what, though, dude? Here's my thing. This is what I took away from that. He did say that because of the fact that he never main evented a WrestleMania, that he felt like his career as a wrestler was a failure. But he did also, and I don't think he actually said it in the interview, but at one point between him quitting and now, he has come right out and said that even though he feels like that means that his career as a wrestler is a failure, if he would ever go back to WWE, he would consider that to be a life failure.
Oh, he's not coming back. You're going to have to stick with CM Punk, at least in my personal opinion, through fantasy bookings.
Well, no, to me, you know what, though, dude? He might never come back to WWE, but I still have my hopes up that he will wrestle again, just not in WWE. I want to see him in New Japan, ROH, maybe. I mean, I highly doubt it, because I highly doubt they have the kind of budget that would be able to afford him, but maybe eventually Lucha Underground. Mainly, I just want to see him in New Japan and or ROH. But even if the chances are slim to none, even if it's like, if he shows up in ROH, he would be like the frickin' Undertaker of ROH. Like, he would be hands down the most respected veteran guy in that locker room. He would be frickin' bow down to the king. He would be just worshipped at that point. And frankly, it would be worthwhile because he would bring a whole lot of name recognition and brand recognition and assets and money to whatever company he decides to go to. And I'm pretty sure that he said something in the interview about how his no-compete clause, it's not 3 months, it's a year, which means that if he does decide to come back to wrestling, it will not be until the summer of next year. But regardless of that, I am 100% confident he'll never be in WWE again. I'm just kind of hanging on to the string of hope that he might still wrestle again for a different company.
I'd love to see him appear in New Japan or ROH in a year. I mean, I'm not saying that would be enough time for him to recharge his batteries, but it's sure a hell of a lot more than 3 months.
Well, and the fact that he's actually getting proper treatment now, you know?
Exactly. And, I mean, look at AJ Styles, Ash. I know you and I have watched a couple ROH shows together, and we've commented just how much better AJ looks, and it's great that he's getting the respect that he deserves, the pay that he deserves, because TNA was paying him piss, for lack of a better term, excuse my language. But,
well, or they didn't, they might not necessarily said that they were going to, but they just didn't pay him. They just, their checks bounced and that kind of crap.
Exactly. So I think for Punk, the money would probably be good.
I feel like TNA has gotten to a point where it has become all of the worst things from WCW and ECW rolled into one.
Yeah, I mean, right when their doors are closing, I think you could classify that as TNA. So I do hope for the best for Punk. Is there anything else you wanted to comment on about the interview?
No, I think that the two main things were the doctor malpractice and the creative stuff getting taken away and given to other people.
I think one more drive-by comment I have, and then we're just going to get right into our Raw review, because I think we're just going to forego this. We are still going to do SmackDown, okay. But I was going to say, firing him on his wedding day, keep it classy, WWE. So.
And you know what, though? That's the attention grabber. That's the TMZ headline, and when I say that, I'm not being metaphorical. That's literally the headline that they used. But to me, that could have been coincidental. I don't know for sure if it was, but it could have been a case where they said something about how 2 days beforehand Triple H sent him a text or called him or something asking him if they could talk, and he said the day after his wedding. It's entirely possible that Triple H was calling him to tell him that they were firing him, and just Punk kind of just basically told him to screw off, and it just happened that the pink slip arrived on the wedding day. But I'm not willing to go ahead and say, oh, they totally did that on purpose. It's all a conspiracy. They wanted to ruin Punk's wedding, as much as they would like you to believe that they did. I don't know. But regardless, whether it was intentional or not, it still comes off as a really crappy move.
Yeah.